Welcome to the Apple Report. I'm Dr. Karen Hiltz, and this week we're going to talk about the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is silent when it comes to the world of education. There's no article, there's no amendment that talks about how education should be applied, who to, any type of program, nothing. It's silent. But you will hear in the news occasionally that there is an education case that has made its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And throughout, if you go and do some research on case studies at the U.S. Supreme Court level about education issues, you'll find that the decisions are based on two amendments out of the U.S. Constitution, but they aren't education specific. The first one is Amendment 5, which talks about due process, making sure that everyone in our country is afforded due process. The second one is Amendment 14, which talks about equal protection under the law. Now, those are the two that you will see decisions being decided upon at the federal Supreme Court level. However, some of you may be familiar with some of the amendments, and Amendment 1 is probably one of the most common ones because it's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble, freedom of the press, and then, of course, to the freedom to petition the government. Lately, there's been a lot in the news with regards to Amendment 2, which is the right to bear arms. But the one that does interest me the most with regards to education, and the reason why I have come to the belief or understanding that I have, is Amendment 10. And that one says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states representatively or to the people, or respectively or to the people. Now that basically states that what isn't in the U.S. Constitution is relegated to the state, for the states to decide on legislation, policy, implementation, those kinds of things. And that's where you will find language with regards to education is in the state constitutions, which we'll talk about next week. But something that I do want to bring your attention to, because there is a case before the U.S. Supreme Court currently, and you'll hear language called the Blaine Amendment. Now, there was a member of Congress from Maine back in the 1870s named James Blaine, and he proposed, when he was in the House side, that there should be some language prohibiting public funds to be appropriated for education other than public education. At that time, the Protestant faith was the dominant religion here in the United States. Well, we started having an influx of Catholics from Europe during that period of time, and the Catholics were not real keen on the theology that was being propagated by the public education system, so they wanted to have their own schools, but the U.S. Congress didn't want funds to be appropriated to Catholic schools or sectarian schools. So there was a bill that was put forth. It passed in the House, but was defeated in the Senate, and so it didn't become an amendment under the U.S. Constitution. However, next week we'll talk about state constitutions and the relationship with regards to Blaine Amendment there. So I hope this was educational and informational for you. Again, the U.S. Constitution is silent when it comes to education and how it should be applied, provided, and paid for. And I hope that you will share this video, that you will do your own research, and that you will continue to learn more about the U.S. Constitution and what it does actually afford its citizens and what your rights are as a citizen. So I look forward to talking to you next week about the state constitutions, and I thank you for listening. Bye-bye.